Welcome to the Cycling in Alignment podcast, an examination of cycling as a practice and dialogue about the integration of sport in right relationship to your life.
Greetings, space monkeys. Did you know that you can go to my website, colbypierce.com, and book an integrative bicycle fitting? What is an integrative bicycle fitting, you ask? And why didn't you just call it a bike fit, Pierce? Well, allow me to explain. An integrative bicycle fitting is a unique product that achieves a high level of client understanding through examination of holistic movement patterns and systems throughout the body, including muscular, fascial, visceral, neurological, lymphatic, circulatory, respiratory, and limbic systems. These are understood in the context of how the dream, goal, or objective aligns life for the client's choices and habits. The environment, psyche, and drive will result in the current expression of athletic ability. This product was created to serve riders who have not found satisfactory results from conventional fitting methods. By taking time to understand an athlete on a level with more depth, we allow space for change in trajectory, which can bring about healing. Orthodox or conventional bike fitting looks at a rider through a biomechanical lens, understanding the athlete as a system of levers that applies power to the pedals and nothing more. Ostensibly, when the relationship of these levers is optimized, the rider will perform to their potential. If a rider's challenges fall outside the scope of this model, often the problems will go unresolved. By attempting to solve all problems with only biomechanical tools, we are limiting the choices we have to bring the athlete to a higher state of health. We must expand our toolbox and widen the scope of our methods in order to serve the client more completely. Cycling is a battleground which will test you on every level if you go far enough. It will break you down to your nucleus and give you the opportunity to build yourself back up again. It can provide the landscape for your own hero's journey. The integrative bicycle fitting is designed to assist you in this process. A session will take about 6.5 hours and have 4 phases. Phase 1 is observation. We meet at the Fit Studio and go for a ride of about an hour. During this ride, I will take video footage of you in the real world. Then we will return to the shop for a comprehensive holistic movement assessment and more video taken indoors. Phase 2 is discussion, education, and mapping. In this phase, we discuss what we learned from our video footage, and I educate you about your current movement patterns. Then we decide the course of action and discuss recommendations. In the third phase, known as change, we take initial bicycle measurements and we begin to make changes in the contact points of the bike. We also do an off-the-bike movement review, instruction of essential movement practices, cycling technique, and posture on the bike. The final phase, integration, involves the completion of the fit process in which I take final bicycle measurements and we have closing discussion. If you want to read more about my integrative fitting sessions, please visit colbypierce.com, click on services, and then you'll find the link to integrative bicycle fitting. You'll also see a link to my scheduling calendar there. Thank you for listening, and please remember to always think critically, act intuitively, and pedal consciously. Hello there, you neurotransmitter addicts. How you doing? A brief introduction to today's discussion with Dr. Courtney Conley. I'm so grateful to have had Courtney in my studio to record with her in person. Courtney is endlessly passionate about the human foot, and she's a wealth of knowledge on this topic. So it was great to have her in my studio. We discuss all the things about shoes, cycling shoes, feet, foot health, toe spacers, etc. You may have heard Dr. Conley's name recently. She appeared on Dr. Peter Attia's podcast, and she was already a big deal before that happened. Then she got multiplied by the Attia effect. While you're listening to our podcast, you'll want to check out her website, Gait Happens. That's Gait Happens. And on her website, you'll notice a section called Courses and Programs. She's got one section there for health pros and another for individuals. Individuals, we could also say, means gen pop or general population. That could be you. She's also got a shop on her website, and she has great pricing on her toe spacers, amongst other goodies, including a toe dynamometer. I just butchered that. I'm going to leave it as it is, just for your pleasure. Thank you for listening to today's episode, and please be aware we are going to break it into 2 chunks because our conversation was quite lengthy. I'm sure you'll enjoy both of them with equal enthusiasm. Thank you for listening, as always, and don't forget to walk outside in your bare feet once in a while. It's good for you. Happy listening.
Hi.
Hi.
It's nice to be here.
Thank you for joining me on the Cycling and Alignment podcast.
Yes.
How are you today?
I'm great.
You found the office?
I found the office, kind of.
Yes, kind of.
You found me on your bike first before I found the office.
It's like, there she goes. Wait, no. So I knew you were going to come around the block. It worked out.
Perfect.
Yeah. So
I saw you riding in your
my 5 fingers. Got to show those off. There you go.
It was very nice. I was very impressed.
That's my footwear for the day. I figured it was appropriate, although I wear them quite frequently. I got 2 pair. I keep one at the office for when I wear other shoes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was saying I was just the first minimalist shoe store
in Boulder.
Did
you just find them online or something?
You know, my business partner had been talking to the owner. So we met up there today, and I was very excited because you can now try on minimalist footwear.
It's huge.
It's huge.
Yeah.
So there's no stores like that.
No, there really aren't. So what's it called?
Stride Lab.
We'll give them a shout out.
Yeah.
Yeah, in Boulder. Yeah. Okay.
Awesome people too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. I'll definitely go check it out.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I've got a pretty good pile of minimalist stuff going on at home. Got Vivos, got Vibrams, depending on
how you say it.
Matt Walden, my Czech instructor, he's a British guy, so he says Vibram.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then do you know Wilding?
I do know Wilding.
Yeah, out of Germany.
Yeah.
Their website's a little hard to find. You have to search like Wilding.
I love their shit.
Germany. They're amazing, aren't they?
Also awesome people.
They seem like
they're
proper German hippies.
And they're very great and very kind. And I love their shoes.
Yeah.
Super minimal.
Super like a sock.
Yes.
Yeah. They have one, the Nebula. It's like a wool blend.
Yeah.
But they knit it like classic German hippie stuff. They knit it so the wool only touches your skin on the inside.
Yeah.
There's no nylon or anything or whatever it's mixed with. I love it.
Yeah.
And that shoe, I wear it in the summer like a flip flop, but it doesn't smell because they have this, I think it's coconut fiber they put in the footbed.
Oh, really?
Something, I think it's coconut fiber. And it's like doesn't smell. They're incredible. Whereas the 5 fingers, you got to wash those pretty regularly. Yeah. Yeah. So what are you wearing today?
I am wearing Field Grounds.
Okay.
And also toe spacers.
With your spacers in them. Nice. All right.
Always.
Nice. And are those your spacers that you guys make?
They are.
They look almost identical to these.
They do.
But they're like 1/6 the price.
Correct.
All right. So people can go to your store, which is on your site. Let's tell everyone that up front.
Gate Happens.
Gate Happens. That's GAIT happens.
Yes.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, that was the goal. We wanted to be able to get people in these, paying attention to their foot health, but make it affordable.
Yeah.
So toe spacers and toe strengtheners and all the things.
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah. So we've been able to help a lot of people, which is great.
And I also have, here, I got toys hidden everywhere. Check this out. Pardon me.
I love these places with all these. Yes, the Nuboso balls. Those are great.
So these I use to kind of open up, massage the plantar surface of the foot. That's the underside of the foot.
Yeah.
Where you might get plantar fasciitis,
The correct terminology as of recently is fasciosis.
Fasciosis.
But this ball too is great. So when you have like a real flat foot, for example, and the soft tissue on the outside of the foot gets real restricted, you can put that, put it on the ground. You put your foot right on that lateral column and mobilize and like rotate your hips, and it unlocks the foot. So
opens that up.
Yeah, just opens the foot.
So, okay, that makes me think of a question that I have for you. Like a lot of times people come in and I think they have a bit of a misconception. They come in and they say, I've got really flat feet. And there's a lot in that statement. I hear people say that as if like, well, it was just what God gave me, Poor me, I've got flat feet. Or someone in a white lab coat many years ago and a stethoscope told me that I have flat feet and there's nothing I can do about it, which is obviously not what we're talking about, right? We want to take autonomy over the structure of our feet and build them and help them be stronger and more capable and more stable.
Yes.
But there's a difference between someone who has actually just a really low arch, but maybe has a stable structural foot, right? Yeah. And they're close to the elusive unicorn of subtalar neutral under load, right? So to define that for people, I'll take a stab at it. Subtalar neutral is simply when the bones are stacked properly and the arch has integrity under load. That's a very general definition.
And I think there's some sources would actually tell you that, I don't ever like using the word neutral because we don't really live in neutral. And even in a standing posture, so many things were going off in my brain when you started talking about stuff. Most people in a standing posture will stand in a mild to moderate position of pronation. So in other words, where the foot looks like it's, diving in.
Collapsed.
Yes.
We might say, or I like to think of it as a inward spiral.
Yes.
Okay.
And it's totally normal.
Because you're under load.
And there's so many variations of the actual structure. I mean, there's so many variations of the actual subtalar joint. So when we see people that have, this mild to moderate turning in, pronation, whatever you wanted to call it, you can't really, the fire alarm should not go off and be like, this person needs an arch support. This person needs an orthotic.
Right.
Because it is a normal variant. And so when you have the conversation about flat feet or rigid feet, you have to be very careful. I think you have to pay attention to function. And that's what it's about. It's not necessarily what you see. Can that be an indicator of what you need to further assess? Yes. But just because you see a foot that has more pronation to it, you see, how does it function? Right. Is there capacity there? Is there strength there? Can they move their foot? And I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah. So there's this blend of this outcome, this presentation of athletes who have restrictions in some aspects of their foot function, and then hypermobility, too much movement in other joints, right? And that's fundamentally what we're trying to establish. If we do a foot screening or we watch people walk, we watch them go up on their metatarsals onto their heels or lift their heels off the ground rather, and vice versa. And we're looking to see how the arch can deal with load, right? How it can handle pressure.
I think the biggest thing with the arch is recoil. The foot changes shape. So, when we're walking, we have pronation. So the foot unlocks and everything lengthens. And then it recoils. It has to lengthen before it can contract.
Right.
So that's what all this, like Luke Kelly, Anya Bailing, they're doing some really awesome research right now, looking at the integrity of the arch and what exactly happens when the foot recoils.
Right.
There's really cool studies out now looking at when they anesthetized the intrinsic muscles of the foot and then looked at the power of push off. So when you're walking. And what they found is when you take away the musculature, when you decrease function of the intrinsic muscles of the foot, you have less power at push off.
Right.
So where they used to say the windlass mechanism, right? So when you lift your big toe and you create that arch, that was, the go-to as far as creating this rigid propulsive lever. But now it's the musculature. It's how strong is that foot when the heel comes off the ground so that you can propel forward, which is huge for my world. Because I'm like, yes, let's get the foot stronger.
Right. So this is the essence of our discussion today. We got a few shoe samples up here, but okay, allow me to frame this for a second, if you would. This is the kind of spectrum that I imagine in my mind. On one end, we have life, and on the other end, we have death.
Yeah, I like where this is going.
And so if we have this spectrum of more life force, more vital life force on one end, and then we have less vital life force, less capacity, less energy, less possibility to express everything that makes up the dance. On this end, we can put things like small children and puppies, right?
Right.
And unless they're sleeping, what are the characteristics of small children and puppies? They are moving constantly, right? Like puppies just, every muscle wiggles. They're like nubbing.
It's like vibration.
Yeah. They're just constantly like freaking out about everything. Oh my God, let's sniff this. I want to nub on that. I want to bite this. I want to run over here and bark on this. And tumble and play and do all the things. And that's what kids are. You go past a kid's playground.
Yeah.
And the energy coming off of it is just insane.
Right.
Other end of the spectrum, we have someone who's in their 70s, 80s, 90s, triple digits. They're in their last 24 hours of life. Are they moving a lot? Of course not. Yeah. They're on their deathbed. That's the expression, right? So lack of movement on one end, more movement on the other. And we've seen this play out in many areas of the medical world. 20, 30 years ago, someone fractured their elbow, put them in a cast for, depending on the fracture and the doctor, 6 weeks, 10 weeks, 4 months, 6 months. Then what did we learn? Oh, this is a disaster because now we take the cast off and the mobility of the joint has stopped.
Yes.
So now we need a year of PT to gain our range of motion back. So the medical world figured out a long time ago that immobilizing or mummifying joints was not a good call. Yeah. It was 3 steps backwards for the 1 step forward of healing.
Well, think about hip replacement. I mean, you get a hip replaced, you're up. The first thing they want you doing
now,
is up and walking.
Right. So what is the problem with this model of shoe? Now, cycling shoes are marvelously efficient levers. Like I'm not going to I'm doing the Steamboat gravel race this weekend, 125 miles. Yeah. I'm not going to put on flat pedals and ride it in V's or in flip-flops because my foot would fatigue, my arch would cramp. I'd probably have all kinds of biomechanical, I don't know what's happening up the chain. So this lever accomplishes a lot. However, especially when we add a really stiff arch in there, we're mummifying the foot. We're preventing that movement of that arch or that subtle pronation. And when we do that, I think the bigger consequence is not the actual lack of movement or allowance of movement. In my opinion, it's the cessation of fascial tension, muscular tension, and electrical activity. Do you agree?
Yeah. I mean, I love the word spectrum. So when you think of shoes, for example, if you think of them along a spectrum, and whether you're talking cycling shoe or walking shoe, when you're in a shoe where it's more mobile, it's flexible, it's thin, you can feel the ground, you have sensory stimulation, your foot is working a lot harder over here, right? I mean, there's more movement. This is the baby puppy land.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the foot is working harder, which is not a bad thing. You're going to have more load through your muscles, more load through your tendons. It's also harder on the foot. This is where you get stronger, though. But yes, if you are going to perform, this shoe or living over here might not be where you want to go when everybody else is in a rigid lever propulsive shoe that's going to be able to, give them, in the running world, 2 to 4% more running efficiency.
Right.
So you have your performance shoe over here. And then maybe in the middle, you have one that has, kind of meet you halfway.
Yeah.
But to being able to dance along that line, I think is what's important. If you live more in footwear, where your feet can actually get stronger, then when you put your foot into a performance shoe, your performance is going to be better. It's like icing on the cake over here.
Yeah.
But if you live in this world where the foot is consistently restricted and you don't have good muscle function or mobility or strength, it doesn't equate. It doesn't equate to performance. And then you have injuries and so on and so forth. So I think being able to know when to dance along that spectrum is huge.
Critical. So you recently were on Peter Attia's podcast.
Yes.
And I like a lot of Peter's teachings. He really highlights that medicine 3.0 thinking forward about the causes of death and preventatively. And he talks about 4 horsemen. Right. So he talks about the causes of mortality. And his whole perspective is, look, let's just nip this in the bud. Like we know how 98% of the population is going to die. So don't wait until you go to the doctor with pain in your left arm, or disastrous blood markers. Start working on it now from day one, like the day you're born. Just start doing the smart things. Makes a lot of sense. Yeah. So, okay, we have the 4 horsemen, which are basically cancer, heart disease, metabolic disease, dysfunction, which is pretty much diabetes, and neurodegenerative disease, which is basically Alzheimer's, right? Then the 5th cause is blunt force trauma, which most of the time is car accidents, but occasionally you get all by bear or fall off a flat iron or hopefully, crash into a tree on your bike or whatever you're doing, right? Ski accident, etc. Those are the main 5. How does the last one play out? You fall.
Yeah.
You fall. When you're cruising out to get your paper or walking through the icy parking lot in the winter in Colorado, you wipe out and then you fracture a hip or whatever.
And the rates of falling are skyrocketing. And I find it really fascinating because one of the biggest predictors of falls as we age, and I mentioned this with Peter, is a weakness in our toe strength.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, if you were to stand up, right, and then lean into a wall, right? So here's the wall, right? You lean in there. The first thing that you should feel when you do that is your toes pressing into the ground. So I have this like dynamometer at my office, and you can test the strength of the big toe and strength of the foretoes. You should be able to produce about 10% of your body weight through your big toe and about 7 to 8% out of your foretoes. A lot of people can't do that. Mm-hmm. So most falls occur at the initiation of gait. So if I was going to walk towards you and I can't control my foot, then I'm going to keep going. Okay. The other thing that happens as we age, right, is that you lose sensory reception. You lose the sensitivity of the receptors on the bottoms of the feet. Mm-hmm. So when you turn 50, you lose about 20% of those. Mm. When you turn 75, those numbers jump up to like 75, 80%. Mm-hmm. So if you can't feel anything, right, and you don't have strength, and then your solution is, well, I think my foot hurts, so I'm going to go put a bunch of stuff under it, like cushion. Now you're just setting yourself up. But I think there's so much, like, it's so encouraging because we know that exercise increases sensory, circulation to the foot. That increases sensory nerve fiber branching. So you start to be able to feel more. And, there's research that will say that exercising the foot helps with neuropathies. Yes. So it's like a no-brainer to me. I'm like, you have to pay attention to the strength, not only for capacity in walking, but also as we age, because we can, prevent falls. Mm-hmm. Yep.
So I think it was, do you know a woman named Joanne Avison by any chance? Are you familiar with the pod? She's quite clever. She's got a great podcast. When I've had a stressful week, she's about the only podcast I can listen to.
Well, then I'm going to have to find her.
It's really nice. She's got this nice intro with this piano, and she's like, "You're so welcome to join me on my podcast." It's like going to hang out with grandma for a cup of tea.
Yeah, yes, you do. I need to know.
So she talks. Yeah, I'll send it to you. So she talks about the foot really is being a sensory organ. Yeah. Right, and people don't think that way. But okay, maybe we can zoom out and think from the lens of evolutionary biology. So this is kind of how I talk. I love having people like you on my podcast. Thank you so much for going, because I get to like tell you all my theories that I randomly throw at my clients. And if they're not thinking this way, they're like, sounds good to me. That's weird. But when I get to have amazing guests, then I talk shop and you can be like, yeah, whatever, pal, you're bullshit. Or I agree with that, or let's go a different way. So how I'm thinking about it is, we took a huge risk when we went from quadruped to biped. I mean, enormous, right? Evolutionarily speaking, we took our center of gravity and put it way up in the air from this all fours. We exposed all our internal organs. Like, where do you want to eviscerate me? You want to hit me in the throat, or you can make it through these ribs, or I've got all this stuff down here you can hit. Whereas you see a tiger, you're basically faced with teeth and claws. So we exposed, but what did we gain? We got rid of a lot of body hair. So we gained sweat organs. That was a big one. Yeah. We have this extremely well-developed vestibular system and ocular system. So we got a really acute sense of balance, which is a necessary evolution to grow the tower taller, right? You're going to build a skyscraper. It's got to have a strong base. Yeah. What is the base? The feet, obviously. Right. So there's an acute, or rather an extremely intricate and developed sense of nervous system interaction with the surface of whatever we're walking on, the surface of the earth in most cases, right? Or in our modern world, the concrete or the wood or whatever. And that whole system has to be very finely tuned to make sure we don't dump it. I mean, if we're running from a tiger and we fall down and break a femur, we're a tiger snack. But even if we just fall off a cliff while we're walking or hunting or gathering, and we break a femur in a tribal situation, like there's no bouncing back from that. Like, you're dead to the tribe, you can't contribute, and now everyone has to care for you. So this is a failure, evolutionarily speaking. And so we have to recognize how important the feet are in respecting our environment, but also the nervous system connection to our vestibular and ocular system. Those things are hardwired, right? So we have our central pattern generator that works with gait, right?
Did you ever see that study with the decerebrate cat?
Oh my gosh, I reference that all the time. Is that not the coolest thing? Okay, will you describe that for our audience? I love it.
So there was a study where they took decerebrate cats.
Tell everyone what that means, because it's
so they remove part of the cerebellum in the brain.
But the cat's alive.
The cat's alive.
Yes.
Yes.
How is this possible? I don't really want to know.
And that's what's so amazing to me about the foot and why we need to pay so much attention to it, because it is we have spindles and receptors and proprioceptors that communicate with the vestibular system to keep us upright and moving.
Yep.
So in this study, when they removed part of the brain, the cats were still able to walk and ambulate due to this sensory, these sensory reflex loops that were occurring. And I just find that to be fascinating.
It's so fascinating. So what does that tell us?
That we need to have this, just like you said, I think it perfectly, is that the foot is more of a sensory organ. I really love that. And it has to feel. I mean, if you think about, every baby on the planet, the first thing they do is start taking their shoes off because they know they're trying to feel and gain their stability. And it's the only contact that we have with the ground being a biped. So it's like, light them up. Let's get this information.
Yeah. So we need information. So the nervous system feels safe when it can feel.
Yeah.
I mean, if those were blackout blinds and I switched the lights off right now, just as a not happy thought experiment, and you've been in this office for 28 minutes or whatever, you'd be like, whoa, shit. And I'd be in the same position because it's my office. At least I could be like, okay, here's the cabinet. Right. Where are we going? Where's the light switch? You'd be like, dude, what are you doing? We can't see, we can't sense our environment. Immediately, we lose a sense of safety.
Yes.
This is what happens when we put our foot in too rigid of a shoe for too long and we immobilize it. And, or even worse, I'll just fire some grenades off, like Hoka's, Ons. These shoes are train wrecks because they will dull your sensory relationship with the environment. How are you going to feel a curb or a rock or a root if you're trail running in those shoes?
Yeah.
You're not at all. It's like insulating you from the environment. So it's dulling down. And if you don't use it, you'll lose it.
Yes.
Right. So we have to actively find ways in our environment to stimulate that sensory apparatus of the foot. One of my, do you know who Phil Beach is by any chance?
No.
Familiar with him?
I'm going to have a list of people that I'm going to have to.
So Phil's a British guy who wrote a book about resting ground postures. So he talks about like a samurai position, a seiza, and using the ground to help make space in the joints. But he also famously replaced his kitchen floor with river rock.
Oh, no kidding.
No kidding. And this is brilliant and also problematic. After I think a period of time, his wife was like, dude, no, we're done. Which is understandable. I don't know how you're going to clean a river rock kitchen floor very well. It's going to be a mess. There's going to be like food everywhere and stuff. But his thought was, well, I spend so much time of my day, every day in the kitchen, cooking food, making my coffee, doing whatever. I can just walk on this barefoot and do two things at once. This is brilliant.
That's where I think you can make those little gains throughout the day, right? Like you don't have to replace your kitchen floor with river rock. But if you're standing at a desk or if you're, that's when you can keep, fall there, or they have pads that are kind of like river rocks and you're constantly stimulating your foot, and I think
sisal here is nice.
Yeah.
This is a good texture, right?
And I think we have to, meet people where they are because, most people have been walking around in footwear that restricts their foot, restricts their toe box, and has had a bunch of cushion on it.
Yeah.
So when I always have these conversations, you have to be wise and being like, don't go throw all your shoes away and just start walking around barefoot.
Right.
Right. You got to be careful in that transition. And so it's like, start slow, start with 10 minutes a day. Let your foot start to feel the ground. And then my patients will always tell me, you know what? Their shoe doesn't really feel that great anymore.
Yeah.
They come to me and say that, and that's when I'm like, yes. Because I know they're eventually going to.
Yep.
So it's that transition that I think is important.
It's critical. Two things that there are lots of things that suck in the world, but experiences that we would like to avoid.
Yeah.
One is a pulled groin, right? Takes forever. Another is ribs take forever to heal.
Yes, ribs take forever.
But feet, like when you get plantar fasciosis, it just takes forever. And as it turns out, feet are really useful for all other daily activities. So, and that's why I think it takes so long to heal, of course, because you want to walk to go to the bathroom or walk to go to the kitchen and eat dinner. And unless you go in a wheelchair or drag yourself around by your lips, on the floor or something weird, like you're constantly, it's hard to let that rest. Whereas you get a knee injury from cycling, you just don't ride your bike for a week. A lot of times you can kill it. Right. Or
foot pain is, pain in our society is just skyrocketing for multiple reasons. But if you look at the highest, like musculoskeletal pain, the highest amount is at the foot. Like a lot of people suffer from foot pain.
Okay.
And I truly think that it has been, years of ignoring them, of not letting them hit the ground. And you're exactly right. Foot pain will stop you from pretty much doing anything. You have low back pain, you can still go for a walk.
Yep.
Pretty much anywhere else you can still.
And it may help your low back pain.
Oh, right. Walking is the best thing for your low back.
Right. But your foot hurts, can't walk, can't go for a walk to help it. All you can do is sit on the couch and
and it's
let it heal.
You get into
not all you can do, but
and nasty cycles there.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm so passionate about this stuff, because there's so much you can do. And I think we need to really switch our train of thought and how we treat the foot. There's no doubt.
Yeah.
There's really cool studies too, looking at, and I think we're going to see more and more of these of chronic heel pain, like plantar fasciopathy. And, the cohort was small. I think there were only like 20 people in the study, but they had chronic heel pain, and they had them run twice a week on grass barefoot for 15 minutes.
Okay.
Which people that have heel pain, they're like, that sounds terrible.
Yep.
Like I would never think about letting my foot touch the ground, let alone run barefoot. And 19 out of 20 of them reported with less pain.
Okay.
And I really think if you tissues need load. We know the tendons need load. We need to get stronger as we age. We need to be resilient. If you think of the plantar fascia as a continuation of the Achilles tendon, right? And the calcaneus or the heel just kind of sits in between those, connections, and you start loading the foot and the foot muscles, right? So the muscles are friends with the plantar fascia. They start helping each other out.
Yes.
Then I don't think that's that surprising. So I think we need to really kind of switch our train of thought and how we're treating some of these things. And again, acute is very different than chronic.
Yeah.
If it's an acute case, you treat it acutely, right? Maybe you offload, maybe there's a, some type of orthotic, but you have to have an exit strategy for that stuff.
Yes. Yeah, agreed. This makes me think of the interview that Tia did a long time ago with Irene Davis.
Yes.
She talks about the science where when people are heel strikers, when they're running or walking, you put more padding under the heel, the heel strike gets worse.
Yes.
So this is an explanation potentially of why when we put people who have heel pain on grass and bare feet and get them to run, their nervous system auto-regulates to feel that if they heel strike, it's going to be injurious. So they start to correct their own gait to a degree, right?
Yes.
It's really
you can't overstride and heavy heel strike because it hurts.
Yeah.
But not if you have a lot of cushion underneath it.
Right. You just slam away.
Right.
And then you get shin splints.
Yeah.
Or tibialis anterior freaks out and loses it.
I think the calcaneus is one of the cool bones in the foot. And there's a beautiful fat pad that sits, over the calcaneus. And it's designed to absorb shock.
Yeah.
So our heel strikes the ground and you have this like beautiful foot that is designed to absorb shock. And we go and mess with all of it.
We do. And we also have to recognize, though, that people have weird ideas about exercise and belief systems about exercise, some of which can be very problematic. So one is that I believe we were all basically brainwashed to believe that unless you fillet yourself in every workout, you're not doing it right. Right? It's like, how do you gain strength? You fail at the end, the last rep of every set. Like we were all programmed with that. At least in the US, we were in grade school, like, this is how you lift weights. And the last one, you have to fail. Otherwise, you didn't do it right. So you weren't good enough. You didn't try hard enough. You aren't motivated, and you're never going to gain any muscle. You're going to be fat and out of shape for the rest of your life. It's like, okay, this is ridiculous. So that's, just in case you're wondering, that's not true. That is false. But then also people are like, oh, what should I do to lose weight? I should go for a run. This is a lot of people have this line of thought. Okay, that's not necessarily good or bad. How do they run? Well, they go run down a sidewalk. Well, human feet weren't really engineered or evolved, without getting into a creationist versus, evolutionary debate. They weren't feet aren't really equipped to handle running on concrete per se. That's a very, very hard surface. When would we encounter anything like that in nature? It'd be hard. You'd have to go to Moab and run on some rocks, right? And for sure, there are people who probably do that in desert environments and run on very hard surfaces. But That would require some even probably modification of gait to ensure that you were not really slapping down that heel. But if we were going to go out and run on concrete all the time, we have to accept maybe that's not quite on the puppy end of the spectrum, the Vibram or barefoot end of the spectrum. We do need some protection.
That's when I think cushion and stack height are important. They're mandatory. I mean, if you live in New York City and you're walking around on concrete on man-made surfaces, and you're walking in a barefoot shoe or a minimalist shoe, I mean, I've been doing it for years. Yeah. And I was in New York a couple of weeks ago, walking around a museum, which is that slower gait, and I had very minimal shoes on. And I was like, man, I really wish I had a little bit of stack height under my shoe. Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that. Yeah. So it's, again, knowing when to dance along that spectrum and being on man-made surfaces for long periods of time. The foot wasn't designed to do it. There's no variability to the terrain. So help yourself out. But I think the key there is keeping the foot in a foot-shaped position. Yeah. That's the difference. So you can still have if you put stack height under the shoe, but you can still have your foot splayed. Yes. And in a foot-shaped position. And there's a difference between a wide shoe and a wide toe box.
Let's talk about that.
So most companies will have wide shoes. So if we had a foot model here.
Oh, sorry. Here. Well, I don't know if this is helpful, but I have them.
Yeah.
Vivo.
So a wide shoe, and most companies will have wide shoes. They'll put the width of the shoe here.
At the metatarsals, basically. Yeah.
Okay. But then they'll still taper at the toe.
To like an almond or a point or a triangle. Whatever.
And so the toes should be the widest part of the foot. Yeah. So when it's like, take a rubber band and wrap it around your toes and try to balance or walk. So wide toe boxes allow the foot to be in more of a functional position, where the big toe can be in alignment. And then you have better function at the foot. To me, it's like the lowest hanging fruit. I will never understand. Like with my patients, the very first thing I do is I will meet you with your stack height, right? Depending upon where they are. Okay. But you're going to get into a shoe that allows your foot to be in its functional position. And I can't tell you, so many people right away, they're like, yeah, you're right. My foot feels a lot better. I mean, it's not a hard sell.
So first point for you is let the toes be free and not restricted.
Yes.
Then you would move towards a lower heel height. Is that fair?
That's fair.
Yeah. Okay.
Because when you're trying to get people to, realize the importance of this stuff, if I take them from, they've been in a very aggressive shoe with an orthotic, and I say, you know what, I want you to go around and walk barefoot in a minimal shoe, they're not going to like me very much. Their system isn't used to it. They probably don't have any calluses on their feet because their foot's never even seen the ground. Yeah. So you have to be wise with that. And so you just meet them where they are. And then as their foot gets stronger, and then as they start feeling around, and then they're like, oh, I haven't fallen. I'm like, okay, this is where we want to be. And it's really cool.
So how do you handle people who come in who have pes planus, like extremely collapsed, inward spiraled, just completely flattened arches? They've got no real mechanical stability to the arch, no real tension in their plantar fascia of the foot. Yeah. And they're just spilling. They've been walking in whatever, Hokas or Ons or some other overly padded shoe. And that's been their universe for years. And now they've got whatever complication either at or above the chain from that, at the foot or above in the chain. Because we can offer them a shoe that will allow the toes to splay, but we have to start educating them about how to condition the foot. So we're giving them exercises, right? But also I think, I'll beat up on the conventional PT model for a second. Yeah. It's like Paul always talks about this. Paul Check, my teacher, we have to isolate and then integrate. Yeah. Right. We can give people banded crab walks and, towel toe grabs all day long. But until they learn to start having some consciousness of their posture walking down the stairs and to the grocery store, it won't really integrate into their daily life. Because then we start to become too segmented. Yes. Oh, I'm doing exercise with Dr. Conley now. I'm going to be conscious of my foot as a tripod or whatever cues you use. Yeah. I'd love to hear those. And then they do them perfectly and you're like, you're getting it. But then they go walk outside and everything falls to pieces. And
strength and skill light up different parts of the brain.
Yeah.
So I can give somebody a bunch of calf raises right? And they might get calf hypertrophy and their calves might get stronger. But if I don't equate that to what their skill is, hey, I want to walk more, I want to run, I want to jump, then I think you're missing the boat. You have to kind of do both. You have to train, strength. But then you have to look at motor control and movement patterns and functional capacity and functional movements and plyometrics and really get their system to start to function better. And you have to look at it from that perspective. But, hopefully with, these adult acquired flat feet, if you will, you would hope that you see those people sooner than later. Because the earlier you can intervene, when the foot, even though it's in more of a flat position, if it's still flexible. So in other words, a good way to assess that would be to put your knee on a chair. And if you can see the arch kind of recoil, if you will, the foot's still flexible, even when you load it, if it's flat. You see what I mean?
Okay. It's got the range of motion. It just doesn't have the tension and strength. Yeah.
But a foot that stays like that, it doesn't have good strength. Eventually it starts to get stiff.
Right.
And it starts to get rigid. And then you go and put your knee on the chair and you look at the bottom of their foot and it stays like this. You're now in a whole nother ballgame.
Yeah.
So now you're really looking at, is there a ligamentous compromise?
Yeah.
Can we strengthen this foot? Now this is, end of the spectrum. So yes, I hope to see those people sooner than later.
The death end of the spectrum, right?
Yeah.
Or the non-movement.
Right.
So this is the other side of the spectrum away from the puppy side is all the joints calcify. We have limited range of movement, limited capacity for movement, and then limited strength follows that, of course, because your range of strength grows smaller. This is a bone I have to pick with, I think, on the subject of belief systems that we've been ingrained, that have been we've been brainwashed with. One is you have to throttle yourself in every exercise, otherwise you're not doing it right. And that's obviously problematic if for somebody who has that belief system and we start to offer minimalist shoes or shoes that aren't as maximalist, we might say, or padded or insulated, that can be problematic. But the other one is train evacuated. My brain just went blank. Shit, where was I? Hold on, I'm going to turn up the AC. Are you okay temperature-wise?
Yeah. It's so, I get so easily distracted when I heard that truck out there. I was like, that's
great. Yeah. So let's see if I can bring this back. It's talking about belief systems. It'll come to me because I talk about it all the time.
To me too.
Yeah. So situating our ergonomics. It'll come in like 89 seconds.
Take a break. It's fun.
Good. Yeah. Good conversation. So maybe we can talk a bit about conventional
I don't know if you were going with the arch support, does the foot need, I know that was one of the questions you had asked me.
Yeah. Well, yeah, let me present an open question then. I often believe that, let me say that again. Open question. Is arch support a myth?
Yes, let's talk about that.
Okay.
You have 4 layers of intrinsic muscles in your feet. So there's a lot going on here. Okay. It was designed to handle massive amounts of load. So in a walking gait, for example, our feet can handle up to 4 to 6 times our body weight.
Yeah.
When you start running, those numbers jump 10, 11 times. When you're pushing off the foot, the soleus can put 8 times your body weight through the forefoot.
Yep.
So the foot is inherently designed to handle immense amounts of load. So do I think the foot needs arch support? No. Now, when you go and put your foot into a shoe, for example, that starts to change the configuration of the foot. So it would take here's your foot, you put it into a toe box that's restricted. Now the big toe is diving in. You're changing the architecture of the foot. So that's going to make the arch more unstable, if you will.
Yep.
So do you need an arch support if you're in shoes or things that aren't, you're changing what is the foot is designed to do.
Right.
So if you're walking around in things that aren't allowing your foot to behave like it should, then could you make the argument that the foot needs support? You could.
You could. But the real solution would be to just put you in a better shoe.
Correct.
Allow the foot to be,
and get stronger.
Yeah.
So, because there are people that say, well, I feel so much better in my arch supports. Well, sure, because your foot's probably weak and you're probably putting that arch support into a shoe that compromises the integrity of the foot.
So I think that zeroes in on exactly this challenge with the shoe, because if we have this sort of rounded aspect to the inside of the shoe here, it's going to put that first ray at this angle.
Yes.
And that's going to put your arch in disadvantageous geometry, you might say.
Yes.
That's a weird way to say it.
If you take your big toe, right? If this is like your arch, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you press the big toe down, and I were to press at the midfoot, there's an integrity to the foot.
Yeah.
Now, if I take that big toe and do this to it, and then I try to press down, you'll see that you start to lose the structure, the integrity of the foot.
So we have to allow the first ray, the great toe, as it's called, to be straight.
There's a reason it's called great.
Right. Yeah.
I think it's one of the most important things we can do is to have a strong, stable first ray.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was really cool. I'm doing a bunch of research right now for a project. And there was a research study that I came across that was looking at like in the 11 and 13th centuries and in the 14th and 15th centuries. And these researchers from England dug up a bunch of the remains of people. And they wanted to see if there was a presence of hallux valgus, so of bunions, was there a difference in these 2 centuries in their feet? And in the 14th and 15th centuries, they saw a higher prevalence of hallux valgus.
Okay.
They also saw a higher prevalence of fractures. And what happened in the 14th and 15th centuries that didn't happen in the 11th and 13th was the introduction of those Fractal, or those real pointed medieval kind of shoes. And I think the other fun fact there is that most of the remains that they found that had hallux valgus on it were men.
Right.
And because men were the ones
wearing those shoes. Yeah.
But now when you look at, bunions, it's a lot of the female population. So we're like, it's a woman dominant, diagnosis. And I'm like, is it really? Or just have we swapped? Have women now started wearing more poor, ill-fitted footwear versus men? I mean, I just find it very interesting.
Yeah. So let's talk about heel height and how that plays into it too. So we've got a shoe, a conventional shoe. We'll just take sort of the worst case example. We've got this conventional shoe that, 7 thoughts at once, that smashes our toes together, right? Puts us in hallux valgus, which is when the big toe is not allowed to be straight, it's pushed in towards the midline, right? And that weakens the muscles of the arch or the function of the arch. And then we raise the heel. And I think there are people who are probably thinking this feels good because it's sort of a crude way to activate that windlass mechanism, right? And so this is how I think about.
Well, even look what you just did with your hand too.
Yeah.
The other thing that shoes will do is they'll put a toe spring in there.
Yes.
So it looks like
toe spring and heel rise. So that's this is the convention of all cycling shoes. I'm not beating up on Lake here. Pretty much all cycling shoes are like this, some more than others. But toe spring is this sort of Dutch clog effect, which raises the toes up. And then heel rise would be the amount of distance from horizontal here where this heel is elevated, right? So how I think about it is, if we're thinking in terms of gait, we have, crudely speaking, heel strike, supination, and then lateral aspect of the foot rolls through, and then we go from fifth to first, and we push off into that normal controlled amount of pronation. And then that's where that great toe allows that real drive of force. We get contact to the first base of the first metatarsal, and we drive off. So that's my sort of model of gait in my head. Please feel free to slaughter that or adjust it as needed. But what we're doing, if we think about running and walking, the supination heel strike could be likened to a form of deceleration.
That's exactly what it is.
Eccentric load of the muscles.
I think of it as like when I teach my courses, I compare it to like someone pole vaulting.
Okay.
Right. So like, right. So it's like my heel hits the ground.
Yeah.
Right. It's that ground reaction force that takes the calcaneus, the heel, and then begins to initiate that pronation.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then it's like this beautiful, like nice controlled. Yes.
Yes. So we have deceleration and acceleration. This model effectively traps the foot in acceleration, which, just like the saying goes, seemed like a good idea at the time. Like, if I could get on my bike and only accelerate, think how good I'd be.
Well, and this is what's so cool to think about. When you put your foot into, a shoe that has a toe spring and a higher heel to toe drop, you're like, this feels so great.
Yep.
Right. And so people are like, yeah, I'm just going to keep wearing this. It's easier. It's less, from an energy perspective, right? It costs less. But here's the problem. You don't get anything for free.
Right. No free lunch.
No free lunch. When the toes are in a toe spring, right, it's going to help rocker you.
Yes.
So you lose strength at the foot. So while it might be nice and feel good, and you might be able to, walk longer distances and do all of these things, please keep this in mind that if you live in that type of footwear, your foot is going to get weaker.
Yes.
So you have to live over here. And then if you want to go on a 30-mile hike and you're going to need a little help, fine.
Or you run your marathon, that's your year-long goal or whatever, you put on the shoes that helps you accomplish that goal safely without injury, right? So
earn your right to be in a super shoe.
Yeah. Not just go straight for the punchline, right? Which is so not immediate gratification, which goes against everything that we have.
I always say, I love that book Michael Easter did. It was The Comfort Crisis. And it's like, it's like we all need to get a little more uncomfortable, right? It's okay. Like, let the foot work a little harder.
Go be in the cold river. Go be in the sauna. Go,
Right. Wear the shoe. You have to work a little harder. And it takes you a long way.
So there's also a rule in strength and conditioning that this principle violates, which is you can only accelerate what you can decelerate, meaning the eccentric load will dictate the ultimate strength, the explosive strength of the athlete. So you do a plyometric, you jump up onto a box. That's a concentric movement, right? You're exploding up onto the box. But if you can't decelerate that same amount of force, your system, or rather I should say it as the concentric or explosive ability will be limited by the eccentric ceiling.
Yeah.
But this activity, when we put our feet in this type of shoe, we're only training concentric movement. We're never training eccentric load. That's why the worst thing you can do for a really fit cyclist who's been racing and training all summer long is give them 2 weeks off and then tell them to go for a trail run.
Yeah.
3 huge problems. 1, their feet and ankle stability is most likely complete crap, right? Because they've been in these all summer. 2, their sense of time is warped because for them, a 4-hour bike ride is medium to long. A 6-hour bike ride is long. But a 4-hour run is like an 8-hour ride. It's 2 to 1 about.
Yeah.
But 3, then they are not used to handling any eccentric load. There is no eccentric load in cycling. So you put them in a lightly plyometric activity, like even a light jog, let alone when they're idiot bike riders and they're going to go sprinting downhill because it's fun. They won't be able to walk. If they don't roll an ankle or tear a tendon or a ligament or wipe out, they're going to not be able to walk.
They'll learn things about their body real fast.
So we have to, one of the tips I give my athletes who come in and they're in Hoka land or whatever, strapping pillows to their feet. And I offer this as guidance, like, okay, we need to start doing this. The best tip I have is, do you have a dog? And if they have a dog, then it's a home run because they're usually walking their dog at least once a day, maybe twice a day.
Well, that's a good idea. I know.
So it's a great way to intro them, right? But I also remind them, look, okay, you're into this. I can see you've got some buy-in. You're going to go buy your first pair of whatever, Vibrams or Wildlings or whatever. Take a little backpack, one of those little backpacks you got for free at your state fair or whatever. Put your Hokas in there. Start out in your minimal shoes.
Yeah.
The rule I use, I stole this from Goda, drip feed, don't waterboard.
Yeah.
Love that. So when it starts to suck, stop, put on your old shoes, walk the rest of the way in your old shoes.
Yeah.
Just because you're walking for 30 minutes doesn't mean you have to walk all 30 minutes in your new shoes. Go until it starts to suck. The minute anything hurts,
Yeah.
Ideally, a minute before it hurts.
Yeah.
When it just starts to suck, change. And that way we're padding the progression with ideally some insulation or a safety margin, because getting injured is the last.
I was just going to say that. And I think that allows the person to feel safe, which is the most important.
Yes.
Yeah. And because if their nervous system start to, feel that something is unsafe or that isn't a good idea, then the buy-in isn't going to be there. But I think when you do that, and I love that idea, because they'll start to notice, oh, today I could go another 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And then you start to see that progressive load, and that's when the magic happens.
Yes. And then a year later, they look back and go, wow, I can't believe I used to wear those shoes. Or the real magic for me happened when I started this adventure, and I tried to we tried to go to a wedding, because you get a wedding every year, 2 years. So you have the wedding shoes and the suit.
That's I have one pair of wedding shoes. And now they're like,
I don't even have any conventional. I've replaced I've managed to find those. There's a French brand called Marcel that makes like a dress shoe that you can get away with. It's super minimal, but it's got this nice wide toe box, and it's all flexy.
I just go with real long dresses now, so I don't have to wear shoes.
Yeah, there you go.
That's the way I get around it.
Yeah.
Sandals.
Yeah.
But I think the footwear industry is coming a long way. I really do. Like I said, this is not a hard sell. Once you really think about just the mechanics and let's just talk about comfort, right? Mm-hmm. With the foot being allowed to be in its position. Mm-hmm. I mean, shoe companies are really starting to catch on and be like, yeah, this makes sense.
Yeah.
And I think that's why we're seeing just a really switch in the industry.
Cycling shoes are starting to catch on. They used to be that pointed diamond toe dress. They're confusing a cycling shoe with a dress shoe.
Yeah.
It's like, let's make this an Italian leather dress shoe that's like almost missile shaped.
Yeah.
What are we doing with this? This makes no sense at all.
Yeah.
And there's still a strong craving for that aesthetic in the world of cycling. Cycling's a weird sport because people confuse aesthetics with function more so. Like Kobe Bryant wears $10 made in China nylon basketball shorts. That's his uniform. The pride in it is that it's the team.
Yeah.
It's the whatever, the Bulls or the whatever that he plays for. That's the thing. But they're the cheapest, crappiest athletic uniform in the world. He probably gets 100 pair of them and plays in a new pair every game. Like most sports don't. Yeah. It's like, I don't care what it looks like. Put the colors on it, the tribal colors, and then it's function. 100% function. But cycling, we're this weird little wormhole of like everything has to look like an Italian sports car or something. So that leads people to make choices that are definitely suboptimal sometimes. Like, but man, I spent $500 on these specialized shoes. Yeah, they're at least a half size too small for you. Probably a size and a half. Yeah, but they're white.
I mean, it's
they're leathery and not real leather ever. I mean, except for Lake. They're the only ones.
These are the conversations I have with people. Like, where are you willing to go?
Yeah.
Where are you going to meet me? So with my cyclists, it's like some of them are like, okay, I'm going to go with a cycling shoe that's wider or that gives you more space. And the ones that don't want to work with me, I'm like, okay, then listen, this is what you got to do.
Yeah.
Because you're showing up with neuromas.
Yep.
You have metatarsal pain. Mm-hmm. You have plantar fascial pain, so on and so forth. Yeah. Then you got to pay attention to what you do before you put on the shoe and also what you after.
Yeah.
But you got to work with me in some capacity because if you're going to live in the cycling shoe where you're not going to be able to allow your foot to function.
Yeah. We have to offset our sport specific movement patterns that we develop in cycling with other, like cycling's an amazing sport. It does a lot for our health.
Yeah. And
it also tends to put our lumbar spine in flexion and build upper cross syndrome and make our feet and ankles lazy and. So
you have to just cross train. It's think about just moving your body in different positions. There are sports where you're not going to be able, I have you talk about the rock climbing world too, because it's like, I want to make a functional shoe for rock climbing. And some of my rock climbers are like, listen, that's not going to happen. And, skates, cleats, ski boots.
Yeah.
It's okay. Like it's the sport. It's the tool for the sport.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pay attention before, pay attention after. It's when you ignore it all the time and you're going to run into problems.
And know your patterns, right?
Yeah.
Are you pronate? Are you an excessive inward spiral artist? Are you a supinator? Right.
I'm very kind of, because we have patients that come in, they'll be like, I'm a pronator. Yeah. I'm a supinator.
Those labels are like postage stamps, right?
And I always say, good, you should be. You should be a pronator. You should be a supinator.
Yes. These aren't bad words.
All right. Yeah. So I have to really watch the terminology that I use with people, because then they say, I'm a supinator, and that comes with all of these things.
Yes.
So I'm trying to kind of debunk the labeling of this and let just people say, hey, those are two very important functions of the foot.
Yes.
Let's see what you're good at. Let's see what we need to work on, because your foot has to unlock and it also has to be strong.
Yes. Yeah. So that's why I use that spectrum analogy, right? It's like, okay, here's our spectrum. Here's extreme supination. Here's extreme pronation.
Yeah.
Just like anything in life, we're too out of balance. The pendulum swings too far on one side or the other. We're going to have challenges.
Yeah.
We're just going to have challenges. So now what I see in you is you trending towards excessive pronation or internal spiral.
Yeah.
What are the challenges if we let that spiral keep going? If we let that pattern go further, or we don't address it, we don't bring it back to center at times, then we're going to have, inward rotation of the knees.
Right.
Right. And then we get all the complications therein, right?
Yeah, I mean, I really don't believe that there's a bad postural position. This isn't bad. It's bad if I live there, right? It's being able to get in and out of movement. That's why I'm cautious using the word neutral. And people are always like, how should I walk? I'm like, I don't know. What's an efficient way to walk?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
There's a difference, rather than saying, should everything look all the same? It should not. We need to be able to get into pronation. We need to be able to get out of pronation.
Yeah.
So it's being able to get in and out of different movements. People get all up in arms about like genu valgum or knee valgus, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, hold on a second. Like, tell that to a hockey goalie who stands in front of the net for 3 hours with his knees together. It's not bad. I'm sure he's real strong there. And I'm sure he can also be real strong going out too.
Right.
So
it
brings up that kind of point where, just because something looks a certain way, see how it functions,
Okay. Are you familiar with Goda?
I am.
Okay. Tell me. What do you think?
I think there's a time and a place. And I think that a lot of their, and I don't have enough experience working with them or with their concepts.
Okay.
So this is just the little bit that I do know. There's a time and a place, and when you're looking at things like sprinting, when you look at a basketball player, when they wind up and they have this kind of winding of their fascia, when you look at, Bolt at the starting line of a race, you can see him in that kind of more internally rotated position.
Yep.
It's a power move.
It's an explosive acceleration.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, I also think that in a walking gait, the big toe is bigger than the other toes for a reason. And we have to be able to stabilize the big toe and roll through the foot in a different way. And I think maybe there's some contradictions in those two theories. But like I said, if I'm training for, certain things, I might want that more wind up of the lower extremity. And then in a walking gait, I definitely want to make sure that I have the ability to find my big toe and be able to propel forward.
Yeah. I think you would probably, if you dug into them a bit, I think you would find there's some congruence there in your philosophy, because that pattern I was describing earlier, they would recommend sort of striking just forward of the calcaneus, not on or lateral aspect of the calcaneus, but just forward. So like right here, basically.
Yeah.
And then outside of the foot, but then you're rolling off and pushing. You are kissing the at the end. You've got to kiss that.
I mean, I guess what I was
when I tarsal,
like,
it's a spiral.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then what they describe as heel away all day, when you really load that, they call it the bow.
Yeah.
Is that external rotation of the femur and that lateral aspect of the loading phase. And then at the end, you unwind. They would describe it as like a violent untwisting. So you get heel away, which brings the limit to internal, and then it resets for the next one. So it's this very spiral pattern.
Yeah. I mean, and I like that. I mean, that makes sense to me. Right. I wouldn't want to speed anything occurring at the foot. Like I wouldn't, depending upon, I don't know where they're talking about hitting on the calcaneus, but if you bypass the calcaneus, you're going to speed through the mechanics of the foot, and I'm not sure I'd want to do that with everyone.
Okay.
I think that grazing of the heel of the calcaneus is important. Now, I'm specifically walking gait here. There's a very big difference across the board with different gaits.
Okay.
But, I should really talk more with them, because I do like the concepts of where those mechanics go. I just think, like I said, you have to look at what your goals are.
Yeah. Always. The goal drives everything. Right?
Yeah.
What does the athlete want? Yeah.
There was a study that I was brought my attention to this morning, looking at hypertrophy of the calf. And the study was like, they had people go through a full range of motion, like concentric, eccentric. And then I think it was, just concentric or whatever.
I think I saw this too recently.
Yeah. And it was like, the only, what they found was that starting from a neutral position, right? So where the foot would be like this, and just going to the eccentric range built hypertrophy of the calf more than going through
the full range.
Right. Yeah. And I was like, okay, if your goal is to build a bigger calf, great. But what if I want to jump? What if I want to cut? What if I want to actually do something? Right. That requires the spring component.
On a mountain.
Right.
Yeah.
Then I want to train my full range. So I think with anything, it's training variabilities.
Yes.
So maybe sometimes I am striking more in my midfoot. Maybe it's more of my heel, but training variability, training tempo, giving your body movement options decreases, your oh shit moments. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah. Which we want to decrease.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, especially like Peter talks about after the age of 50, if you're a master's athlete, you cannot afford to it's just like an investment strategy. You're 21 and you found 10K in your bank account and you want to go blow it on Dogecoin or whatever. Okay. You've got a lot of that gets flushed. You've got a lot of earning potential left in your life. Does it suck? Yes. Is it game changer? Probably not. But once you're 50, 60, 70, maybe you're retired.
Yeah.
To be a little more selective about how we spend our money, right? What weird funds we put them in. So it's the same idea for someone who's even, I would argue, past 40 as an endurance athlete. If you're training in the gym, which you ought to be, or I will retract the word gym. You don't necessarily need to be doing gymnastics, which is a weird way to think about the word we use gym. But if you're moving off the bike in a way that complements or offsets your cycling specific movement patterns, which you should be doing, I would argue. I don't like the word that you use the word should very often either. But I'll say it. You should do that. Then we are the number one objective of that should be to do it in a way that avoids injury potential or minimizes injury risk. Because if you're strength training, your primary goal and objective is cycling or whatever it is, marathon running or whatever, and you injure yourself strength training, this is a disaster. Nothing short of a disaster. Because it means you chose an exercise. You either approach the bar too quickly, you're in a hurry, like Kelly Starrett says, all the injuries happen in the first rep or the last.
Yep.
You either went to the bar too quick, you were in a rush, or you did one too many reps.
As the first run or the last run.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So we want to engineer our program in an intelligent way to avoid the risk of injury. And if you injured yourself, you either did that, you went too fast or went too far. Ego said, I can do one more. Or you just used an exercise that was inappropriate risk-reward relationship. Like, oh yeah, I can do a clean and press or whatever.
Yeah.
And, my shoulder hurts.
I mean, I always tell my patients, there's no magic exercise. There's no magic exercise that is going to fix what you think needs to be fixed, which I also am not a big fan of, right? It's like, it's what works for your brain. Like when you're doing something, what is a meaningful movement to you? Does it feel good when you're doing it? And if it doesn't, let's find something else to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
The brain has to light up and get excited. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Exercise doesn't have to be torture.
Right.
Right.
And you should enjoy it. And if you don't, find something else to do.
Also, it won't be sustainable. It's not going to be a cohesive part of your goal. If you come to me or you go to Courtney and you're like, hey, you have to do, 20 minutes every day of toe exercises with a towel.
Yeah.
Some people might nerd out on that stuff and love it. But often we'd have people who would be like, that sounds really boring. Okay, cool. Go for a walk on the grass.
Right.
With bare feet or whatever we find the appropriate
And I think the movement variability piece, especially with my cyclists too, like years ago, it was, I'm only riding my bike. That's all I'm doing. Yeah. And, now we're starting to see change, people are like, okay, I realize that I probably have to strength train. And if I don't want to strength train, then I realize I should probably walk more or do a different activity other than I'm going to be on my bike all the time.
Yeah. It's pervasive in cycling still to this day. It's starting to die. That if you want to be a good bike rider, you just ride a bike. You don't walk. You don't do anything else. And if there's also a saying, if you're standing, you should be sitting, and you should be lying down. That's the pro model of cycling. This makes really dysfunctional athletes. If you get to the point where you can't lift your own road bike onto your own roof rack without worry that you're going to put your back out, that's terrifying, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
We need to build resilient bodies.
Yes. Hard to kill. Durability.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
I want to be hard to kill.
I want to be hard to kill. For sure. I don't want to walk, carry the groceries into the house and be like, my lower back hurts, or, my legs got sore from going up those stairs with that.
Yeah, that's not going to be good.
That is not good. No. Attention, space monkeys, cyclenauts, somanauts, explorers of the soma. Meta people. You have reached the end of part 1 of this podcast. Sometimes the conversations I have with my amazing guests run so long that we feel compelled to break it into 2 episodes. So thank you for listening to part 1. Please join us soon for part 2. We'll see you there. Don't forget to pedal consciously, think critically, and act intuitively. Be well. Hello there, Cycling in Alignment listeners. I'd like to take a brief moment to speak to you about the podcast. As of this recording, I'm well over 125 episodes in, and this has been a multi-year project. And I'd like to say that I'm very grateful for the opportunity to have this podcast. And I suppose just about anybody could have a podcast now. But what I have is an opportunity to really educate people about the things that I've learned and have amazing discussions with so many guests on my pod. And I've got so many more episodes planned in the future. That said, this podcast is a challenge for me. It's a challenge to put it on, to find the time, and it requires financial investment. I've got to pay for an editor. I've got to pay for equipment. I'm paying for software, paying for all the things you have to pay for when you put a podcast out into the world. And I have had financial supporters in the past. Enduro Bearings, namely, has been a great supporter. I've had other supporters as well. But moving forward, I'd like to offer a model in which my audience can show their appreciation directly. After a great amount of consideration and consternation on this topic, I've come to have a model in my mind. The model's really simple. If you have appreciation for the Cycling in Alignment podcast, if you have listened to my episodes and felt that it really has enriched your life, helped you, educated you, perhaps made you think about things from a different perspective, maybe you agreed with me on everything, maybe you agreed with me on just about nothing, but you listened anyway. I can't imagine that's the case, but I suppose it's possible. Maybe you agree with about 89% of what I say, and the other 11% of the time you think I am batshit crazy. In any case, if you would like to express your appreciation for the time, effort, and money that I put into this project, I would be grateful if you would go to my website, colbypierce.com, and click on the podcast page and offer some appreciation in the form of a financial contribution. This will help me offset the cost of this podcast. I may have other financial contributors in the future. This isn't a closed model by any means, but I do need to find a way to monetize this podcast. I've considered platforms like Patreon and others, but they seem convoluted and complicated. I don't really want to go to a paywall system. I really want to just offer content and teach, educate, discuss, philosophize, have great dialogue with the guests that I'm honored to have on my show. And to do this in the simplest way possible, I just need to push record, that is, and then you push play and get it out there. That's always been one of my methods of operation, is keep it as simple as possible and just produce the content. I don't have a goal of growing an audience. My goal is to educate people. And if I do that well, then my audience will grow as a side effect of that. So another way to offer your appreciation is to share my podcast with other people, to write reviews for me, do all the things, click the stars and make the comments. That helps, because we live in a world of algorithmic preferential treatment. But if you want to move the dial for me, then please go to my website. That's colbypierce.com. Click on the page titled podcast, and there you will see some options to make a contribution that demonstrates your appreciation for what I've done. And for that, I will be grateful. There'll be a few different levels to this page, and the highest level will get you some goodies in as a thank you, including some woolly Rafa t-shirts printed with my Pierce Coaching and Fitting logo. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you in advance for anything you can do to help me spread the word. If you aren't in a position to contribute financially or don't want to, again, you can help by simply forwarding my podcast, sharing it with other people, sharing it with your friends, tell people about it on rides, spread the word, and even just send me a message and let me know if I've moved the dial for you. Send me a message and let me know if you have pertinent questions. Also, at the highest level of the podcast contribution page, you will have the opportunity to submit a personalized question for detailed analysis on an episode or a private consultation, if that's what you prefer. So that's going to be something I can offer you in return for your financial contribution to my podcast. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. I'm so grateful for my audience. I appreciate you and the opportunity you've given me. Epilogue. I want to share a few brief thoughts about the inception of cycling and alignment. The purpose of this podcast is for me to get 3.5 decades of hard-fought lessons out of my skull. Some of them through my own research and reading. Some of them I've been taught through mentors and colleagues, other riders, other racers. A lot of it, a massive amount of it, was simply trial and error through my own stubborn methods. And that has amassed a certain amount of experience and knowledge, understanding. And while I think I'm reasonably smart and I know quite a bit of stuff, I want to make it clear that the opinions that I share on this podcast are belief systems built on what I've experienced to this point. And that some of those opinions are pretty strong, but they are also loosely held. That is to say that if I learn more about a topic and have a greater level of clarity or understanding, then my old belief systems will be abandoned and I will now operate under that newfound knowledge. So I'm not here to tell people all the things that I know. I'm here to explain what I've learned to this point. And there's a big difference. Also, that is the intent when I discuss things on the pod with guests, is to learn from them and have a discourse. Because if we can't have a discourse as adults, then we've lost one of the basic tenets of modern society. Even if we disagree, we ought to be able to, in most cases, shake hands and walk away. Because after all, this is sport we're talking about, and while sport is training for life, it's nothing to get too upset over. The purpose of the podcast is to help me help other people, and specifically to help them actualize their highest potential by illuminating a path that enables alignment with their truth, their intent, and their coherence. That's really the end goal. So I'm grateful for your listening. My intent is also not, to be clear, to gain an audience or become popular or gain social status in any way. I don't care about that stuff. That said, if you feel an episode that you have heard will help someone you know, please share it with them. that helps us reach the end goal, which is to help more people. Thank you for listening. I'm grateful for your time and attention. Blessings.